G'day, everyone. Welcome back. Big episode. Scotty, good to see you, mate.
Absolutely great to be here.
Scotty, this sport, we love it.
Yes.
We absolutely love it. We watch it 24/7 around the clock, even from Australia. It's, one thing that I get a lot of when I'm in Italy. Fans in Europe do not appreciate the sacrifices the fans in Australia make for this sport. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., it's a common part of everyone's life.
It is. If you see me on any Sunday, you'll know that I'm awful to talk to. You see bags under my eyes. And that's because I've got a routine now. We're staying up till midnight. We're having a little cheeky 1.5 hour nap. And then 2 a.m. we're going. Because Everton, my team in the EPL, they usually play at 2 o'clock and then 4 o'clock go to bed. I'm either not a happy boy. My girlfriend who sits next to me, she goes, did they win or did they lose? And I'm like, we lost. And then it's straight to bed.
When I was younger and I was not doing my work over there now, when I was in Australia, I would tend to be one who would stay up all night and then sleep on the other side. I found it very hard to have that 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. nap in between. But it's a lot of sacrifice people make. And fandom and fan culture and everything around the sport is something which, I think the football world, particularly in Europe, is starting to realise that there is a big market out there. Obviously, in recent years, we've seen a lot of pre-season matches taken to other parts of the world. We're hearing talks and have for a long time about UEFA taking Champions League matches to the US particular. But it's just the world game for a reason because it is so powerful and has the ability to do exactly that.
Oh, absolutely. Australia, especially where we are now, we've got it's like a secret underbelly because we only arise in the middle of the night and we're all talking amongst our friends in the middle of the night. I know for one, I'm on Reddit because I'm sitting there by myself and talking to random people across the globe. But yeah, no, there's something about this game that gets us up at all hours of the night and makes us lose our minds.
The Americans can definitely relate. Obviously, the sport's starting to really take off and emerge and grow. And it is similar here in Australia, of course, albeit different size of population, but there is that love and passion. It always has been, particularly with the European immigration here for decades now. One thing I take great pleasure out of is a lot of my friends from Melbourne who big AFL fans and love sport in general, but had never been to a football game before. And they've come and visited me in Milan. And I've taken them not only to San Siro, but particularly when I take them to San Siro, watch a game of Milan or Inter, and just watching their reactions to experiencing and immersing themselves in the football culture there in the hub of it in Europe. And it always brings me great joy because they always say that it's the same feedback. I've never seen anything like it. I've been at the G, I've been with 100,000, and that's fantastic. That's amazing. But this is just something completely different.
It's different. It's way different, especially to anything that we have here. I think Australians are here are just so the sports we know are very dynamic, very explosive, and I guess we love those big moments when something big happens, so we don't get that atmosphere the entire time. But when you go to especially a football game with a massive crowd and they're just singing, they're chanting, sometimes there's a bit of flares. It depends where you go, which I love personally. It's a lot of fun. It's completely different. There's not much around here that you
There's
can
no
get that
stopping.
thing.
There is no stopping. Look, from a work perspective, I often have to get to a stadium 3 or 4 hours before kickoff. So let's say a Champions League match midweek, 9 p.m. I have to arrive at about 5 p.m., albeit on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, mind you, 9 p.m. kickoff. They don't care for school the next day for kids. And you just watch the fandom. You hear what's going on outside. You then start to see when they open the gates and fans pour their way in the stands. Even when the stadium is still completely empty, it's still quite loud what you can hear. And then as it starts to get within an hour and a half closer to kickoff, the build-up, and that sound maintains that high level right through to the end of the match. And then even at the end of the match, it's 11 p.m. post-match, and there's still so much passion being just invested into this experience of being together and loving this club. And it's something very different. You're right. In our sports in Australia, we certainly have a lot of high moments, but this is just consistent for hours.
And I have so you're talking about how you're in the stadium 3-4 hours beforehand. You're seeing the outside of all the passion.
It's already started outside the stadium.
I have a complete opposite view. For example, I can think about when I was in Rotterdam to watch the Europa League, Roma versus Feyenoord. I'm sitting there at the front because I've bought some tickets, right? And you always be nervous when you go to get tickets that it was hard to find, and so I'm making sure I'm going in early. They only let you in 90 minutes, 60 minutes before the match, and I can just hear the techno blasting on the inside. You can hear the roof rattling. And then as a fan outside, you are just so raring to go when you get into that stadium.
Absolutely.
It's so exciting.
And there's some of the most special memories one can have. And this is where I bring it back to sort of our experiences from a work perspective or from a fan perspective, and particularly when I've brought friends from Australia to matches, just the appreciation and joy that they have to experience that is something truly special. Now, I know from a fan perspective, you've traveled to different continents, and obviously from Australia have enjoyed some of the very best that the local games had to offer, but you've had experiences covering or following teams in South America and following teams in Europe. What are the differences as a fan going there and enjoying that? What are the major things that stand out to I guess, what you've experienced here in Australia, but in Europe as well?
Yeah, I think, first of all, here in Australia, we are lucky, especially if you live in Melbourne. We've got the Melbourne Victory, who have put on a really good show, and they somewhat try to replicate what you get to see overseas. Now, when you go overseas and you go to these massive matches, which I had never really done before, last year was probably the first time that I really got the opportunity to see some of these world-class matches in Europe. It's something else because you're getting full...
What do you feel first time you go in there and you see that? Because you watch it on TV for so long.
Yeah.
Is it everything you thought it would be?
I was thrusted into it. I remember getting off a plane in London. I knew I had to get to a Tottenham game.
Yeah.
I had some issues trying to get my ticket. And so
it's all part of the fun.
It was part of the fun. I remember just being in Doha in a crossover and trying to work out at 2 a.m. what my ticket is. Anyway, got the ticket, had to rush to my hotel, rush to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, got there about 30 minutes into the match. And I was lucky enough to be sitting in the where a lot of like the home fans are standing.
Okay.
That's the difference, first of all. A lot of people love to stand, especially in the English League, if you're in the right spot. And I love that personally. I love being amongst it, feeling like the crowd.
There's normal seats there, but
there's
people
normal
are on their
seats.
feet.
For most part,
Yeah.
especially on the sides, people are sitting. But if you're behind the goals in certain parts of stadiums, you're standing. But when you go there, you're honestly mesmerized. Like, even though I was thrusted in, I remember just sitting there being like, wow. Like, atmosphere, first of all, it's almost you've been looking through like foggy glasses. It's like you've wiping off and everything looks so clear. And obviously the quality is great and that obviously helps. But it's just something you've just been watching on TV for so long. You've been watching all sorts of football all around the globe. You go there and you're like, wow, it's a pinch me moment, to be honest.
It truly is a very unique experience if you haven't experienced it before. I try and never take for granted every time I get to spend at any stadium, whether on the pitch, in the stands, because it's each club, each city has its own experience. Yeah. And you can't go wrong. There is endless, limitless opportunities to enjoy different experiences at a football match. Funny, just on the standing up for matches, always love seeing that because that does require extra energy from the fans. In Germany, particularly Bayern, I work at the Allianz a lot for Bayern Munich, and they have sections in their stadium in the actual corners where the old school German stadiums were standing only, as in there are no seats. There are only just bars, metal bars, and you just stand there and you enjoy. A lot of stadiums in Germany do that. Bayern, when I work at regularly. So even the best club in Germany still have that, and that itself is unique. Could you imagine the MCG with 20,000 standing, not standing room only where you're just having a drink, standing room only where you're essentially standing in the front row of the pitch. It's quite a remarkable experience.
It's so remarkable. And I know for a fact the team that I go for here, Geelong, which is about an hour out of town outside of Melbourne, they've clearly taken that. They've watched.
Love it.
They've watched games across the globe, especially football, and they've taken that. They have a unique part of their ground, which is stand only.
Very cool.
They've got the bars. And I remember going to the first game. It was like the way people act in that area is like people act in football matches around the globe.
Love that.
There's chanting. When they score a goal, it's people just jumping up and down. And something about that really I was like, that's awesome.
That's
we can
cool.
Bring that influence.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And it brings out a different feel.
Yeah.
There's a different feel around. You can see those fans are always enjoying it in a different way. From a fan perspective, people always ask me, I think my side job is a ticket collector because people always ask, where do I get tickets? How do I source tickets? What do I do? Can I tag along at a job you're doing at Sunset or next week? So I get these requests often, but where does the fan start to look to purchase tickets? How have you gone about that in the past? Because it's not so easy.
It's not easy. And you know what? I've also become that person now because people have seen me, especially last year when I went quite a bit last year. people saw, they're like, how do you get tickets? I reckon I've fielded that question. There's multiple ways you can do it. Two of the ways are the hard ways, and the third way is the fun way, which is the two of the ways first of all, you can get a hospitality ticket. There's like travel agencies that do it. Of course. You can do that. A little bit extra money, but it guarantees you a seat nice and early, which is great. You know, that's good. And usually the seat's good. You might even be able to get some tea and bickies inside, which is great.
You'll pay though.
You will pay for it.
You'll pay.
You will. The second of all is you have to get a membership with the club, and then it's a unique situation where they only release tickets like 2 weeks to a month in advance of the game. So
this is
you're on edge.
Really frustrating one because this football schedule in Europe is basically made up every few weeks in terms of, in Italy, you know who you're playing in the next match day and so on and so forth. But there are European competitions, the Champions League, Europa League, and you don't know who you're playing in the next round. You don't know which teams will progress to the next round. And so they don't actually confirm dates and times until the last second. And especially in Italy, sometimes it's 2-3 weeks before. So that's frustrating from every perspective because it's very hard to make plans around something you don't know when the game will actually be played.
Absolutely. And if you're you're talking about sacrifices we have here. You think about it, you're trying to plan a trip. You're hoping that the game goes ahead because the game could be in the middle of winter. It could be snowing. It could be a storm. Young Australian man just recently, at the end of last year, wanted to see the last ever Merseyside derby in Liverpool.
I saw this one.
A storm ran through and he couldn't go to the game. Luckily enough, Everton actually brought him to the game that was recently played.
Lovely.
Which is beautiful, but you've got that. So there's obviously that, hard to deal with that. So obviously you can get your membership, buy it that way. Fingers crossed that you get a ticket because it's not hard. And if you're trying to look for two next to each other, good luck. It's near impossible because...
But our people want the fun way. What's the fun way?
The fun way is the resale sites.
Yes, that's the one.
I still get WhatsApp messages from the person I bought my Celtic tickets off who are telling me, we're versing Rangers in 2 weeks. We're also versing Hibernian in 3 weeks.
Want to come? I'm in Australia, but I'll come.
Exactly. So you buy them from... There's a load of really trusted... You can go on Trustpilot, a website that can tell you if this is a trustworthy website or not, and you can buy these resale tickets. Now, you will get the occasion where your reseller, sometimes they're mailing it out to you, which is beautiful. One time I got mine mailed out. They gave me a scarf. That was really beautiful. I loved it. I rocked up to Marsdale and I was like, that's really nice. I've got a nice little souvenir. But the other time is you got to get outside the stadium and he'll tell you, I'm going to be in a car and I'll call you when your ticket's ready. And so you're sitting there and you're going, geez, it's about 15 minutes until kickoff. And I remember just standing there. I'm like, oh, gee, I reckon I've been swindled here. And then you look around the corner and you just see this small little black car with about 20 people around the car. And like you've called him. Like I remember calling him and he just goes, yeah, in a sec, one second, hangs up on me. Probably did that twice. I'm like, what the hell? Because you don't know how different cultures operate.
What game was this?
This was a Celtic game.
A Celtic game, okay.
It was against a lower club, but wasn't entirely sure. But it was funny because I was really looking forward to this one. And I eventually got the ticket, rocked up to the car. I said, hey, do you have a ticket for Scott? And he's like, checks his envelopes. He's got about 20 in there. Gives it to me, gone. And because he had my WhatsApp number, I've still getting the text messages.
The universe always delivers. Sensational.
But it's fun.
It is fun if you like to live dangerously. I got some good friends at Sports Where I Am, which is one to keep an eye on here, coming big in Australia in the European football space. But more on that at another time. When you eventually get in there, though, some of the best experiences I've had as a fan have been in this sport. Love sport, seen a lot of it. But again, there's something that's extra unique about this club, country, all sorts of things. And extra unique are sometimes, the most special memories are sometimes the most difficult moments. So there may have been a little stress for you with that ticket purchase. Is it actually coming? Am I going to get this ticket? But it makes for a good story and probably you enjoy it even more. But it's that side of, it's the unpredictability. It's the diversity with each club you visit or each stadium you visit, that there's completely different. It's never the same experience. Even inside the same stadium, different teams, different opposing fans, never the same experience. And it's the away fans, which is something which I find really interesting. Again, doesn't compare to any other sport I know globally. We can speak from an Australian perspective again, where if you have a game at the MCG between a team from one state and a team from another state, fans sit together, fans drink before the game together, drink after the game together. It's very friendly, but in the football world, this is common knowledge to me, but I'm surprised of how many of my friends are always pointing out, why is there a group of fans wearing other colours stuck in the very, very top tier of this stadium. And why are they locked in there for an hour after the game? And it's raining. Why can't they get let out? No, because it's for their own protection. It's very dangerous if we let them out. So for their own protection and for the safety of everyone at the venue here, the best thing to do is to keep them locked up. But that's a very common thing.
It's a common thing. And I think if you're not from a football, like a dominant nation, it can seem like the most wildest, inhumane thing. But it makes sense. When you're there, it makes sense. That's the thing. And I think that's the beauty about it. It's just something about it. You're like, that makes sense. We let them out in a bit. They're the away fans. You just got to treat it like the home fans get priority. It's their home game. If you go away, you're going to take.
It's also where the sport differs again in terms of it runs deep culturally, politically. There are many other factors. Now, not every set of fans dislike the other set of fans, but you have to implement the same measures. I remember covering a match in Italy. A lot of clubs don't like Juventus, the most successful, one of the wealthiest. There's a lot of love-hate relations with Juventus and the rest. And one of the first games I actually covered pitchside did some work around when I was there, when I moved to Milan, was a match of Juventus travelling away to Atalanta. Now, Atalanta is an hour drive in Bergamo, beautiful part of the country just north of Milan. And the amount of police with huge weapons, I don't even know what these guns are called.
It's scary.
The amount of horses there to protect 2,000-3,000 Juventus fans who were then locked in these old school yellow barricades in the pouring down rain and then eventually escorted into the away end of the stadium, which had no roof on it at the time. So they were completely wet for 4 hours. And the amount of police presence there felt like that there was something bigger happening than a football match. And you are on edge, especially when you are not so used to seeing that. So I think once you eventually get in and you're at your seat and you're fine, but when you see such a significant police presence for a sport, it's not what most of the world are used to, and it can be a little off-putting.
It's a shock.
But it is for everyone's safety.
It is for everyone's safety. And I think when you experience it enough, it starts to make a lot of sense. You can get it and it's not a big deal.
That's right.
You're like, that makes sense. And a lot of the times it is fun. Like sometimes it doesn't make sense in the sense that you'll see home fans, if a team scores a goal, you've got all the security around the ground. Team scores a goal, you might see 20 people run on the field just in the corner to celebrate them.
Sure.
Now, where we're from in Australia, if you even dare to try and jump on the field, that's it. You're probably going to get banned for life, whatever. But if you're one of these fans in Europe, for example, if you jump on the field and you want to hug one of your favorite teammates, like obviously don't condone it, but usually a security guard, if it's harmless, they kind of just wave you back and you say, please, we need to get the game going.
On the flip side, this is a very recent story I have, but someone reached out. It was my father's friends, nephews.
Well, that's how half these stories start.
Cousin. This is how it happens. I tell my father all the time, enough of these requests. But there was someone that I didn't know who requested some tickets for a West Ham game at home. Now, while they were in England, West Ham weren't at home in that period, but they played away at another London club. And the conversation died down because I don't have access to West Ham tickets. I'm not a ticket machine. But this person found West Ham tickets, a couple of West Ham tickets, and sat in the stadium, nice seats, but didn't know, wore the West Ham shirt. West Ham didn't score. I think they lost quite heavily, but the colours were spotted. And that caused some trouble amongst the crowd. And within the opening quarter of an hour, they were escorted out by the security, by the police, out of the stadium completely. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds they paid for these tickets. Life dream, watch my club. They've travelled from Australia and kicked out of the stadium with no opportunity to get themselves back in within the first quarter of an hour. So that's the other side where just be careful. It's not like what we're used to in other parts of the world.
If you're going to take anything from this podcast, don't sit. If you're an away fan, don't sit with the home fan.
Just go enjoy the game. Just
watch. And if you are, don't wear your colours. Be very quiet.
No colours.
No colours. No cheering, not even a little fist pump, because I had that when I went to London Stadium to watch West Ham versus Arsenal. There was just two people. They weren't wearing colours, and for all I know, they were quiet.
Sure.
But that rose suspicion. So
Just be
it's a weird one. So yeah, that's a tip.
Be careful. The fandom runs very deep.
Yes.
It's a religion over there. Have you had any really epic experience? Like if I say the most epic fan experience that comes to mind, or a journey to get to a stadium, or something that was a little bit out of the ordinary, anything come to mind?
Yeah, well, I go back to that Tottenham game where I flew off the plane. Jumped off the plane. I was rushing. It was nonstop. Couldn't find my ticket. Had to figure that out. Everything kind of clicked into place. I get to the game. They're 1-0 down, but they score. They equalise. Sonny comes on. He assists to Johnson the back post in the 95th minute, and it is mental.
Yeah, very cool.
And just coaching, obviously, and we love Ange here. They're freed from desire afterwards. Everyone's losing their mind. And it was just like, because that was my first real introduction to football in Europe, not outside of a previous trip about 6 years ago when I was a bit younger. That was very special. But a more unique one was when I was traveling to Chile, where my mum is from. And so she's from Santiago, and my family's in Santiago, but about an hour and a bit down south, I think it's south, or towards the beach, is Viña del Mar, which Everton, which is the name of the Chilean team, was first in Colo-Colo. Very much like Juventus.
Yes.
Hated by everybody.
Yeah, yep.
It's the richest club. You know, they've had some really big superstars come from there. Arturo Vidal, one of them.
Of course.
And that was really unique. That was a real eye-opener, because we're talking about the security at the start. It's like the army is out front with the big guns. And I've never done anything like this. I was like, oh, we'll go to a football game with my uncle and my cousins. And it's great. And Viña del Mar, by the way, is like the most beautiful part of Chile. It's like no air pollution. It's a beach. They've got the casino there. There's people eating ice cream on the beach. And you go there and it's just a whole different world. And like you're talking about, like that section at Bayern's stadium, the whole stadium, there's not a single seat. Yeah. It's gravel steps and just a big fence in front of everybody. And it was one half was closed off from the other half. So everyone, if you're from Colo-Colo, you're on that side of the ground on the left, on the right side. And it's just, all I remember is I coming home and I went to see Mum afterwards, and I just started saying a few words that some of the natives were yelling, and she told me never say those words again.
I tell you, some of those stadiums wouldn't pass the health and safety checks of our parts of the world, but they make for a very cool experience. You know, Chile fans looking at World Cups. I was in South Africa, Brazil, and Qatar most recently. Were they there?
They haven't been there
since 18 and 22, like Italy, my other country. That's a shame. But in 10 and 14, the Chilean fans were, for me, number one. Definitely. Unbelievable support. Mexico, always fantastic. People always ask me this, like, who are the best fans, especially when you talk national teams and international tournaments. But Mexico and Chile, particularly, the amount of fun that they brought to the tournament.
Yes, it's fun.
It's another level. And you mentioned, and this is where it does creep into the football culture and the fandom as well, but England, USA, Australia to an extent, although to be fair to the football here, I haven't been to too many A-League matches in my time, but the spectacle is more entertainment, especially in the US. Everything's entertainment. I love US sports, but NBA is, there's a bit of basketball being played, but it's a show.
Yeah.
The further east you start to go in Europe, you go to South America, this is the opposite of show. It is pure fandom. Even in Italy, we're a little more progressive than most in Europe. But music and songs, it's not. It's just pure passion, pure emotion, and it just makes the experience what it is. Go further east, go to Greece, go to Turkey. Epic. Yeah. Absolutely epic. And that's where then the flares and the tifo and everything else that comes into it, those 15-metre by 15-metre giant flags that they wave all game, it just makes the experience so special. And that takes us back to what we said at the start. There's just a different, unique experience to be had everywhere at club level. Everywhere.
I think one of my favourite videos on all of Instagram is a young Argentinian girl. She climbed the fence because in some of these South American countries, very passionate people kind of got to get a fence up because otherwise they'll rush the field. So this girl has climbed the top of the fence.
Amazing.
And there's a barbed wire fence, just a little bit of barbed wire on the top. And like she's got a little bit of blood trickling down her leg, but her face, she's just in tears with passion. She's chanting. Yeah. She's crying and chanting at the same time. And something about that, like I just can't replicate it anywhere.
No.
That's the thing that I struggle with. I try and replicate it here, and I actually support my team in Australian rules football harder now because of the passion I got from going seeing teams internationally.
Love that. Yeah. And when you travel to these countries, especially South America, World Cup in 2014, we mentioned World Cups before, but the passion that the Brazilians had for the World Cup on home soil, I'm so disappointed they didn't win that, because that would have been the biggest party in the history of the existence of the planet. Oh. And that Brazil World Cup, I remember I was on Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, and there was a watch party for Brazil-Mexico. I have no regrets in life, but my one regret, which I wish I could change, it finished 0-0. Yeah. There was 500,000 people lining the street of Copacabana. All I wanted to see was a goal. I wasn't at a match this day. I just wanted to see one goal, because that would have been something else. In the end, though, still experiencing that and all the drama and all the energy and the emotion with 500,000 Brazilian fans on Copacabana Beach was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had. But just bringing the country together, what the sport can do, is why people are so passionate about it. And those people there in Brazil were so beautiful throughout the tournament. I remember I went to Italy and Costa Rica in Recife, the northeast of the country, and there was one road that went to the stadium. It was poorly planned by all involved. And there were probably between 12 and 14-year-old, mainly boys, on little scooters, taking tourist fans off buses and opting to drive them to the stadium. I remember I got to this stadium about 10 minutes before kickoff with seriously a 12-year-old Brazilian kid who I gave 50 Brazilian real. It was maybe 10 Aussie dollars. Yeah. And he drove my brother, myself, and my cousin to the stadium on a scooter. Very cool experience. But it just brought this whole country together. It's a powerful sport, and a tournament like that is something that can unify the planet. And through these small experiences, it really gives you a great appreciation. So it's super cool to hear that now you've been able to sort of translate that to a local sport in Australia and just invest that same level of passion.
And you talk about that. Like, it's something about the game where all these experiences happen like 90 minutes before the game is where you get all your stories, and they're amazing.
The best time. Leave it to chance.
Leave it to chance.
Take the fun option, like you said.
Exactly. You got to take the fun option. It's a lot of fun. That if there was one thing that I could do, if I could, as a fan, and go back in time, would have been in one of those Brazilian games in that World Cup on home soil, and just I still have their anthem ringing in my ears, like the players just standing there yelling it. Oh, and it was, I think, and it just became known every time a Brazil game on, you had to watch the anthem. It was the best part.
Amazing. Yeah. National anthem's another beautiful part. Mate, been a lot of fun. A lot of passion,
fun.
A lot of energy. We'll do it again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.